you guys talk about general health a lot. Like if you have that mentality of being disciplined, right, and having a goal and striving towards that goal, the sky's the limit, right? And like you said, if there's gonna be negativity, doubt, all this kind of stuff, it's just how you want to combat that and do that is your choice.
Welcome to Iron Summit, where we cover topics about health, fitness, and general performance through the eyes of former elite Division I wrestlers.
All right, we're live.
We're live.
You're so back.
All right. Today we have my good friend Darian Cruz, teammate of mine at Lehigh, national champ for Lehigh, 3-time All-American for Lehigh, Puerto Rico world team member, and most importantly, dad. Also, this is all in the sport of wrestling for those of you who do not know. That's probably an important detail. But what's up, Darian?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to hop on the podcast. You know, I see you rocking the mountain barbell, up to some good things. Iron Summit's the way to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, one thing, Darian, we got to talk about too is your dad strength, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Listen,
did you feel that come on once you had a kid?
plus 5 to the strength. I always tell I'm talking about I tell this to Max all the time. It's like the first stages when they're like a little potato. You know, you're holding this thing that's like 8 or 9 pounds, right? But you're like in such a flex. That's where I think the dad strength comes in. Is like you're holding this very light thing in a very awkward angle. So the dad strength is all in the back, just holding this thing in an awkward position. And as the baby grows and as you get more and more comfortable holding it like a very tiny potato, you like loosen up a little bit. But dad strength is plus 500%.
Is it gonna be plus 10 with number 2?
Oh yeah, number 2 is coming in March. Little baby boys on the way. So yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll have another toy out there. Another little toy running around. Yeah. So we'll see. We're excited. A lot of things on the horizon. So
How old? How soon are you gonna put him in the weight room? Is the real question.
I think he's bulking right now. You ask my wife, he's already bulking.
He's bulking right now.
Yeah,
Smart.
he's got mama bear on a diet. You could tell he's just like, feed me,
I like that.
feed me and bulk me up. But it's so funny talking in that way. It's like Kayla's all of 5'2" and I'm all of 5'3". So you know
Never know.
This baby's not going to be the biggest thing, but
Maybe you got a big uncle or something that comes in. You're
working on it.
Yeah. He's gonna be short, but he's gonna be strong. Be a little.
We call those fire hydrants.
Yeah. little muscle hamster.
Short wides. We'll see. Hopefully he's like not right. Let's get some length on him. Kayla's family's pretty tall, so we'll see. She's the shortest one.
That's awesome. Hey, Darian, you were just talking about some supplements that you took early on. Talking about kind of some of the stuff Max was talking about.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Save it for on air. What was that?
That little clip you guys posted up on Instagram talking about, and I could tell you could barely get out of your mouth without laughing, just because it's freaking hilarious, right? You're like, yo, I'm committing to the gym bro lifestyle, right? I see all the TikTok, I see all these people getting crazy, all the smelling salts, the pre-workouts. So I take a pre-workout one time for like upper body lift, and I just remember this was maybe one of the only times, and like it was the first and last time. So I take this pre-workout, and you get all the tingles in your face, and you're getting itchy. And I've had teammates just straight dry scoop it or whatever. So I take it maybe like 15 minutes before the workout. I'm getting tingly, like I'm starting to sweat before the workout even. Like we're warming up, and I'm like ready to rip my face off. So I get on the bench, and we're warming up, right? We're starting to get up there, warm up 135. I'm like, all right. So my second set, I'm gonna go straight to 225. So it's the max day, right? We're getting heavy, right? I'm feeling like I can lift all the weights in that freaking gym. So I put 225 on, and I'm benching and I'm flexing, and I feel this pinch go from like the top of my scap up to the back of like my head. right? Like just
You got
straight.
a
It felt like
stinger from pre-workout?
oh my god, this feeling that I felt put me into like a retirement. Like I got off the bench and I like couldn't see straight. And I swear I never touched pre-workout and it scarred me for life. Like
Ugh.
this thing that shot up the back of my neck. Like this thing where I was walking around like this for a little bit. And like, people are like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Dude, I can't move right now." And I don't know what it was. It could have been technique, could have been anything, but I blame it on pre-workout. So
What's the other
pre-workout
comfort?
is not for me. It's probably something like crazy like C4 before it got like banned for
Okay.
being outrageous, right? For being like crack. So no, I was like something like C4 and
I
yeah, I never used pre-workout ever again.
That's
Covered
brutal.
still,
I laugh so hard because I know that feeling. It's like you get
right?
like this like headache from I've had it before. I had it on a hack squat machine once. It crippled me for like 3 days.
Like, dude, that is something I don't want to do ever again.
It's like in the base of your skull.
What is that
What's
from?
cool.
Like beta-alanine? That it's not like too
Mhm.
much caffeine. Like too much
No, I
caffeine, you
think
start getting
it's
like, sweaty.
no, I think it's like you and I could see it happening on benching. On hack squat it happens because it also like restricts your blood flow by
Mhm.
pushing on your traps. I think it's like you expand the blood vessels in your head too much from like the
Crazy,
That sounds
crazy
healthy.
stinging.
yeah, not good.
Alright. Darian, so I guess going into your training then,
Mhm. Make
what's your current
mistakes.
training life,
Yeah.
like? And I mean, obviously, I think in college you were I think we've talked about this a little bit before, like, you were probably a
Yeah.
little lighter,
Oh, yeah.
in college.
Oh,
You
yeah.
never were, like, undersized in terms of strength. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it was
yeah.
pretty fun one of your interviews against, right after you beat Gilman, you're like, "Hey, he wasn't even that strong," and Gilman was
Yeah.
known for, like, cutting, like, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, as a huge
Being a
25
freak.
pounder. So, obviously, you were a little bit of a musclehead in college. So what was your training like then and now, and how has that
Yeah,
changed?
absolutely. I mean, like, talking about, we joke about the pre-workout stuff, but, like, you just gotta learn things sometimes the hard way. And, yeah, coming into college, I was, like, super light. I was, like, 118, and I have, like, another funny story about that. I remember and Max was there the whole time, so I basically spent, pretty much every day after my, first couple of weeks freshman year, I spent like bulking with Max. The coaches are like, live with the
Nice.
heavyweights, right? So I mean, I got so crazy that my locker was next to Max. I was between two heavyweights, Max, me, and then Doug. Doug Valero was the other heavyweight. So I was just saying, I was always around heavyweights, and all the time, every time we traveled, got the guys cut
Yeah.
weight. Like Darian, Max would hit me up. Hey, let's go get food. We just got to the competition, like the place, like whatever we're wrestling. Let's go get food. I'm like, I'm in. Um, but it's crazy that you say that, right? Like even in that interview, I mentioned he wasn't that strong, and then if you look at the other side too, he does a post match interview or later in the tournament, and he was giving me compliments on how strong I was, right? So it's like it all goes back to true freshman year. I'm like 118 pounds on campus, right? I'm tiny, and I'm starting as a true freshman, and even that year going into it, right before season started, I remember I had a workout where I weighed out at like 116. Right,
Jeez.
I'm like 9 pounds underweight. And I remember Coach Sean Hughes was there, and Max, I think you went out to lunch with us that day. It was like me, you, and Doug, and a couple other wrestlers, but that was a morning workout. So imagine working out at 10, finished by like 11:30, 12, and the next workout's at 4. Hughes pulls me aside and he goes, "Darian, if you don't come back at this next workout weighing 125, like the team is done." If he wouldn't even tell me, he's like, "Yo, there's punishment coming." So, and I'm like, I got on the scale before I left the locker room, and I was like 8 pounds under. So
Oh.
I'm like, I have 4 hours to do what? So we go right to the sandwich shop, the Goosey Gander, right? They're known for these big sandwiches, right? Bulky sandwiches. And I get there, and I'm like barely finishing one. I ordered 2, right? Because again, I went with like Max, Doug, and they polish off 2 sandwiches before everyone's sandwiches even come out there. And we're there for like 2. I spend the 2 of the 4 hours like just having a stare down with this one sandwich. And like, and so finally we finished the sandwich up, and I'm just like full as heck. But I remember going immediately back to the locker room, like with an hour and a half left before the workout, and I bought a gallon of water. And like
Just
the biggest kind of like letdown moment was when I get on the scale with a full gallon and I weigh 125 flat.
So
Oh,
you
So I'm
yeah.
like, there's no way around this. I have to put all this in my belly. Or like, and I'm a true freshman, so like I don't want any of these problems from the coaches, right? I'm like, I have no idea what we're gonna do. So I spend the next hour and a half just pounding this water, right? Like this is like it's not what's recommended, but I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever. I'm gonna get this done, right? I'm getting it done.
Yeah.
So I'm pounding this water. I'm literally like laying curled up in a ball next to the scale. I finally polish it off, get on the scale, about to throw up. I weigh 125 flat. I run over to the coach's locker room, said, Hughes, get over here, check the scale. And so I get on the scale, weigh 125 flat. He leaves. I throw up from all the water. And then finally and then I have to work out with like all this water in my belly, just throwing up.
Yes.
So the workout was terrible, but I remember finally after the workout, I asked Hughes, I'm like, Hughes, like that was brutal. Like what could have the punishment been? He's like, I would have made you sit in the middle of the room with as many Gatorades as it took, like whatever, like 3 or 4 Gatorades, and the team would have been doing sprints with you in the middle of the gym just drinking Gatorades. Until you made weight, and like I was like that punishment at
That
the
would have been
time,
bad.
like for a young freshman, you know what I mean? Like,
it's a good way to get the team to be
oh my
against you a
god,
little
like,
bit.
look at this guy. This guy sucks. But yes, no. To bring it full circle. I learned a lot, right? Like I said, going back to that pre-workout story, like you take some L's, like that's obviously not the right way to do it when you want to try and bulk. But immediately after that, we got on this. We were lucky enough to have a really good strength coach in Eric Marcosi. Hopefully, you guys can have him on here one day. But he's a genius. He's a guru, and and it wasn't until Max kind of showed because he does all sports, right? And it was his first time working with wrestling as well. He kind of showed him, and this is the coolest thing about the guys is when it comes to lifting, he takes his ego out of it. He's always willing to learn and adjust and adapt and grow, which is super elite in the field of sports science, sports nutrition, right? So like you get some lifting coaches who are like super egotistical and just their egos get in the way of them learning, growing, and changing and adapting. So Max was one of the first ones to show him like, hey, we don't, if a guy's trying to bulk, we don't have to we shouldn't be on the mats, you know, as much as the guy trying to cut weight, because that's how you get hurt, trying to lift and get bulky and trying to wrestle a lot. It's just not a recipe for healthy joints and
Yeah.
healthy body. So Eric did a good job of getting guys on schedules to maintain weight, cut weight, and bulk. So I was immediately with those guys bulking. And one of the things I learned with Max too is just being disciplined, right? So I remember like trying to gain weight was like one of the hardest things. And it was like a simple thing is just eat more times a day, right? So, and I was a terrible eater. Like, not that I didn't like eating, I got full really quick. I'm a little guy, tiny stomach. So we made it a point just to feel uncomfortable all day. That's
Yeah.
wrestling, right? Like,
Yep.
how do you get better in wrestling positions? You get in those uncomfortable positions until they're less, so they're more familiar, right? That's how the good wrestlers get better. So we made sure we were eating 6 times a day, lifting, being disciplined with our lifting schedule, and disciplined with our diet. Right?
Yep.
And I'm like
We
all that kind of stuff.
I think that was my senior year. We really started splitting up, like then with Eric and then
Oh, yeah.
coaches credit too, Coach Pat and Hughes and
Yeah.
Dylan. Like we started splitting the team, especially it was kind of like lifts, but also wrestling frequency.
Yep.
And we had like we separated. We had the cut boys
Yep.
and the build boys.
The cut boys and the bill boys.
Yeah,
I love that.
Wait,
Wait, so hold on.
the build
Were
boys
you
would all
guys-
like hang out together and eat a bunch and
yeah.
do their own lifts.
And
It was
I was the smallest guy, but like 60 pounds.
I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
say, were you in
Yeah.
were in the Build Boys Club?
It went
Oh,
from
yeah.
Darian to like we had a couple 197 pounders who were
Yeah,
like trying to fill out the weight and the heavyweights.
Yeah,
There
it's
you
go.
great. It's great.
I love that dynamic. I feel like every team I've been a part of, there's always
Yep.
this funny connection between like the heavyweights and the lightweights. And
Yeah.
like they're either like best friends or they hate each other and they pick on each other the whole time. But
Yeah.
for some
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
it's always big and little, just like messing with each other. So
I
that's
feel like
awesome.
That's how you were on the team with Sebastian, right?
Yeah.
So when he got to Puerto Rico, he would just torment our heavyweight.
Yeah.
He would just bully our heavyweight from Puerto Rico, and it's just hilarious because, like I said, sometimes like you get the relationship where they just are just butting heads the whole time,
Yeah.
or they're just like I said, me and Max we room together all the time. He's seen some crazy stuff. Like going back
He's
to
seen some stuff.
another story time, like my freshman year. This is like old stuff. So my true freshman year, and this is just a positive male perspective. Male men should treat women really good because they can do stuff. So my freshman, like, so NCAA's right before the All American round, you go back to the hotel for a little bit. So I'm rooming with Max, right, and I get this phone call from my girlfriend at the time, right. Sorry, Kayla. Kayla knows about this story, but she called. She's like, so you have like an hour break, right? So my girlfriend at the time calls me in that hour break, and I'm about to wrestle a blood round match, right? I'm in the blood round, and she breaks up with me like within that hour. And
Wow.
I remember sitting there. Max is just behind me, basically, just like listening to the convo. Like, should I leave? Should I stay here? This is very awkward. And I'm like, and I'm in here like crying like a baby. And I was a mess. And I'm like, listen, I remember being like, listen, like, just break up with me later. Like, break up with me in an
Yeah.
hour or something. Like, just give me an hour because I had to wrestle. And she was like, no, no, no. But like I said, this is why I say, men should treat women better. I didn't treat her the greatest, but regardless, broke up with me, and Max was just there to be a good teammate, roommate. He literally was just like, dude, I know it sucks, but we gotta go wrestle right now. Like, pack your shit up. Like, let's get out of the hotel room, and you got a job to do.
Well,
And yeah, Max and I went through that, which is pretty crazy.
That's
well,
cool. That's
but then it worked out because you
It
you
did, yeah.
did win that
Ended up
match.
becoming an All American, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good. But like I said, like if you had like that's what, like talking about the relationship. You have big guys, little guys, right? Heavyweights, little weights. Um, Literally, like he was like, dude, there's no time to like dwell on this. Like we got shit to do. Like let's go. We got a job to do, and we went out there, got it done, and then yeah. So Max has seen some at the highest highs and lowest lows. So it's good to have a good support like that,
Yeah.
and then connecting it with bulking and like he showed me really how to be disciplined. Like moving transition into like a different part of the conversation. Being disciplined on your diet is the biggest thing, right? Biggest thing I think that you can do in terms of getting strong and putting on weight is no matter what you do, just be disciplined in it. You know what I mean? Like, so Max used to wake up, like, set his alarm for like 2 or 3 in the morning just to crush a protein shake, go back to bed. Right. And like, once I saw that type of dedication, I'm like, yo, this guy's crazy. But at the same time, you see the
That's
results,
crazy.
right? He's getting big. Like, I'm like, you telling me I have to wake up out of my sleep to bulk? But yeah, that's what it took. So, I mean, he got me on that discipline, and fast forward a couple of years, going from being undersized to me naturally just weighing 120. Like, I think that year I weighed 126 the last day, right? So it's like it goes to show that yeah, you might be undersized weight wise, but if you can be disciplined and have a solid strength foundation, you can be as strong to bang with the best of the guys, no matter how big they are. You know what I mean? So that was I think one of the biggest things is being disciplined to um the commitment of bulking, or same thing with losing weight, right? You got
Yeah.
if you're gonna grow or cut down, it's very similar, right? I think if you're cutting weight, you should still eat maybe the same. So Max, another thing that we learned too is eating more times a day, right? Like 6 meals a day. I wasn't a big breakfast guy, but I forced myself if I want to be committed to it. Got to be disciplined. Eat breakfast, right before the morning workout. Go to the morning workout. Eat right after. Right after that, go to class. After class, grab something to eat. Right, I ate 3 times and it's already noon. Hang out, maybe eat a little something before the workout, right? That's the fourth meal. After the big workout, we go to the dining hall, eat again, and then I eat a little meal right before bed, or like a protein shake before bed. That's 6 times. And if you're gonna be cutting weight, maybe it's eat maybe 5 times, right? Maybe cut out one meal, keep that consistency, but just smaller portions,
Yeah.
right? So I tell all the guys, even the college guys at Lehigh, I'm like, hey, if you want to build or you want to lose, it's gonna be the same. It's gonna be very similar. You're gonna have to be committed. You're gonna have to be dedicated. It's gonna take work. Obviously, bulking is a little bit easier, like on the
For
mental
sure.
because you're enjoying yourself a little bit more. But either way, it's both. It's hard work, right? You talk to someone
Yep.
who's bulking, and he's like, it's not all sunshine. You're constantly uncomfortable, forcing yourself to eat. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
especially to compete. Like I know you guys work with a bunch of heavyweight, and it's like you could tell the ones that are committed to it, they're disciplined to eating multiple times a day, and you can see the numbers too. You see their numbers are kind of if they're kind of plateauing. And you ask them and truthfully, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I only ate, 3 times today or 4 times today." It's just you gotta pack your day
Oh
with
yeah.
more
You can
calories.
see who's doing the work because it does show. But no, I think yeah, for you, you were always super strong. Even when
Yeah.
you were light, you were
Oh,
strong.
yeah.
Very
Oh,
like
yeah.
an ant. But
Yes. Yeah.
Mighty
He's
Mouse.
like, yeah, he
There
can
you
lift
go.
many times his body weight, but he's benching 225 at
Yeah,
125
and
pounds
just
of
being in the
strong.
weight room with those
Insane.
big dogs, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
at the same time, your pride and ego come into it whether you want it to or not. So you're like, you see these guys lifting big dog weights, and you're like, "I'm not gonna lift. I'm not putting a 25 on this bar." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here with that. So, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You just toss the weight on as well, and it's good having a good environment too. Like,
Yeah.
talking with people that graduate, and that don't no longer compete. Look at how many of your friends that aren't competing and just kinda in the business world. Look at how many times they lift. They probably barely lift, right? The ones
Yeah,
that
that
don't really, right?
yeah,
It's like
that
it's
team
hard to lift by
environment makes a
yourself.
big
Yeah,
difference.
100%. It's hard to lift on your own. Like I know my brother's always struggling. So I invite him to lift once in a while, but he's like, dude, lift on your own is, especially if you're not like committed to it or like love that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So,
But,
Darian, your
go ahead.
mindset with this was like crazy, right? So I think
Yeah.
you're undersized, don't
Yep.
care.
Yep.
And then like specifically like, looking at your 2017 season, you
Oh
win a
yeah.
national title, you upset Thomas Gilman, who like was by far the favorite, probably at the weight
Yep.
at that time.
Yep. Yep.
And I think just staying locked in. It was right at the end, right? There's like 14 seconds left. I think you took
Mhm.
him down.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
escapes right away. You go into
Oh
overtime. You
yeah.
take him down again. And then you
Oh
got
yeah.
Lezak in the finals. You're like,
Oh yeah.
I think people were thinking like, this is gonna be a letdown match. He just had an awesome match. You beat the
Yep.
number one seed, and then he's got to
Mhm.
wrestle a kid that just majored you earlier in the year.
Yep. Yep.
And then
Yep. Yep.
you beat him again. Like, let it
Mhm.
fly in the finals,
Mhm.
roll through, sweet takedown at the
Mhm.
end.
Let it
Like,
go.
talk about your mindset, man. I feel like getting up for those and just like being able to just wrestle. You talked about
Yeah.
earlier with Max, like your girlfriend breaking up with you right before your true freshman
Yeah.
All-American blood round,
Yeah.
match. Like, what goes into your mindset when you're wrestling?
Yeah, absolutely. I just know we had good people around us to kinda like, 'cause you're young kids, right? And you're getting into it now with coaching, right? You're constant. You can only bring a horse to water, right? You can't, make them drink. So the toughest thing I think, thinking about it from a coaching perspective, is like, how do we inspire these kids to dig deep in themselves? So I was fortunate enough to have coaches and teammates, right, that were constantly inspiring me to move in that direction, right? Like Santora was just a big preacher on control what you can control, right? So you can't control if the guy's bigger than you, right? You can't control if he's strong. Like you can obviously in a way, right, by being in the weight room, doing all this, right? But at the end of the day, when you're in that circle, none of that stuff that you can't control shouldn't be a factor on your mental game, right? So we did a good job, as like even before matches, with just like, hey, so it's crazy that tournament. I remember before I left for St. Louis, I was having dinner with my parents, and I like just right before we left, I left the house. I was like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go win a national title." Like I was just so convicted. Like I just stood up and I'm like, "All right, when I come back, like I'm gonna be a national champ." Like just
That's
straight
sweet.
up,
I love that.
I straight up just had so much conviction that I was ready to do it. But that started like early in the year, like week one. I thought that way, um, from the very first official practice that season started. Was like, I won that national title week in and week out. Every day I put myself in a scenario. Every time we would do live, this one's for the national title, right? So I wrestled the national title hundreds of times in my head, right? But season plays out the way it does. I think I beat the 2 seed. It was Joey Dance. I beat him in a dual meet right before the conferences, right? But they put me at 4. Like even the story of the bracket was crazy. They
Yeah.
gave me the 4 seed, same side as Gilman. Like you said, Gilman was a monster that year, beat
Yeah.
everybody. And I
I
remember
think
Pat. Go ahead.
Gilman was probably not only he was definitely the favorite other way, but he was probably one of the most guaranteed locks at any
Oh
weight
yeah, and
that
any of the
year.
weight
Yeah.
classes at that year for sure. He dominated everybody. Um, and then I remember Santoro. We had a conversation. We're like, what do you think about the brackets? And I remember at first I'm like, yeah, that's kind of BS. But I remember I was one of the first ones, even out of the staff, where I was like, yo, like we got to beat everybody to win. Like we got to beat everybody across from us to win a national title anyway. And they were like, all right, then we're not going to argue like we're not going to like kind of argue or protest. Like let's just go get it. And so they were really cool and quick to like basically throw out feelers like, hey, what do you think? And I was like, it's kind of BS, but luckily we were trained for that situation. I was like screw it, let's go get it. I got beat everybody who was ahead of me anyway. If I don't beat them in the semis, I got beat them in the finals. We don't care. So we got after it, and then just keeping that momentum going the whole time. like I said, it was I don't think anybody was stopping me. Like, after I won that finals match or that semis match, um, I didn't even consider that at least Zach had beaten me. I knew it, right? I knew he had beat me, but there was no way anyone was stopping me. Mentally, I was in that space where I was like, nobody can take this away from me. I'm going to get it, right? So
Yeah.
even that match with Gilman, it's like it's close the whole match, and I remember having a moment in that match, and you can see it. The first period, nothing really happens. Maybe I get to his leg. Second period, he's riding me out, and there's a stoppage in the clock. Maybe I was kicking out, and they called locked hands. They reviewed it. I go to my corner, and I have this moment where I can kind of like regroup, and I go to the coaches, and I'm like, he's not that strong. Like, so I'm like, the whole year, he's like a big bully to everybody. I remember
Yeah.
going to the corner, and I remember Pat and Darius Little look at me, and they're like, "Well, go out and win." Like, they're like,
Yeah.
"It's not," you know what I mean? Like you're figuring like it's so weird. I come to the corner, and the first thing I say is like, "Hey, he's not that strong." But if you watch the match, up until that point, I wasn't doing anything on bottom to win the match. So
Yeah.
from that moment on, I remember walking back to the center and lining up and being like, "If I want to win this match, I got to go get it now." Like, I just made that commitment. I'm like, "Let's go get it right now." And literally from that whistle, I almost get out. Like, I explode up. I Granby, we get into the scramble. I almost get out. But from that point on, the match changed, and we end up going neutral in the third. Right. Um, Short time left. I get to his legs. I take him down. Right. A little brain fart on my end. I didn't know how much time was left on the clock, and I'm hanging on the ankle. All I hear, right, the
Yeah.
crowd's
Yeah.
going
You
crazy.
could have held it.
All
Yeah.
I hear is a count, and I hear 2, 3, and I could have held it in 1, but I let go to try and like regroup, and he kicks out. And I look
Yeah.
at the clock. Time is
Dang it.
ref yells, actually 1 second time. And I remember like just being like this adrenaline rush of like emotion. And I'm like breathing like all like wide eyed. And I'm like walking to the corner. Pat's like, "Get on the line, get it, like go get it." And I remember just in autopilot, just turn and get back on the line. And I'm in it. But like I said, I put myself in this situation so many times before this actually happened that it was automatic.
Yeah.
I got right back to that line, and I was going to get another takedown. And then I get that crazy takedown in the end. And all matches on the other match were stopped because we had like 2 stoppages in ours. So literally the whole arena is watching this match. And I remember I get that takedown. The arena blows up. I'm
Yeah.
yelling as loud as I can. I'm like cursing to myself. I'm like, "F yeah." I can't even hear myself yell. That's how loud it is.
That's awesome.
Um, and then having that much momentum carry in, like I said, with that much conviction coming into the tournament, and then just kind of having that big win, and having myself kind of mentally and physically work through that. Like I said, like there's always gonna be doubt, and I doubted myself in the first period and a half of that match. But when I made the decision that I was ready for that, like I'm like, "Dude, I'm built for this. I trained for this. Let's go get it." The match changed, right? And then carrying that momentum into the finals, there wasn't a single ounce of doubt that I was gonna lose that match in the finals.
Yeah.
Like, I was so ready to like, we spent the whole morning because you weigh in early. You spent the whole morning, and I experienced my brother. He's 41-pounder, real long, lanky build, same thing. And we got in all these scenarios that we watched film, right, and kind of prepared. And I remember at the end of that workout, Brad and Pat Santoro were like talking to me, and like we were going through scenarios. Okay, if this doesn't happen, if we don't get a takedown, then we have to go down, or are we going down or neutral, right? Like it's stuff that you're gonna get into as a coach now, right? Like you train for the NCAA's, but come NCAA's, you might make a different call. I mean, during the season, you'll tell all your guys to go down so they get better at getting out. But come
Yeah.
NCAA's, if you know that your guy's not gonna get out, maybe you're gonna go neutral just to put him in a situation to win. So we're talking about all the scenarios. And at the end of that workout, Pat and Brad just look at me and go, "Dude, like, you're hot right now. Just go freaking out wrestle this kid. Like screw wrestling moves and strategy and technique. Go out wrestle this kid." And I
Yeah.
remember even before I ran out in the tunnel, Brad like looked at me and saw me getting like a little anxious. He's like, "Yo, you're just a way better wrestler. Go wrestle like you know how to." And like that just opened the gate for me to go out there and just let it rip. And I got the first takedown. Didn't have to go down. It was his choice. Second period, forcing him to make a decision to go down and not go top, and the rest just played out. But like I said,
Yep.
the mentality going into that, and it all plays into strength training, all that kind of stuff, is like the commitment level that it took to win that national title happened well before, right? It happened, that summer going in. I remember I was training for a national title, right? All those lifts, right? But I didn't want to eat that fifth time, that sixth time. You know what I mean? I put weight on it. I'm like, dude, if I don't eat, I'm not gonna win a national title, right? So I kind of forced myself to be in that ride or die type of situation. So then when it came up, right, we're like, I need to get this takedown, or I'm not gonna make the national finals, or I'm in the national finals. I need another takedown to win. I've been doing it every day. It was every little
Yep.
decision in my life. So it wasn't even a decision for me. It was do what you
It's-
need to do.
So it's to distill it, it's kind of put yourself in the position
Yeah.
before you get there, train and like
Yeah.
you want it,
Yeah,
and
not just with little things, not just with, like, just wrestling, like, yeah, I think it's gotta
everything.
be everything, right?
Oh yeah,
Because then
every aspect.
once you're so kinda disciplined and laser focused, and you just crush all that doubt, right? Because every time you do that, you're crushing doubt little by
Yeah.
little. You're crushing those doubts. Because when you get to the big stage, sometimes, your mind can flood with doubt, which again, it seems like such a negative thing, but, like, talking with a sports psychologist recently, he had a good perspective saying, like, think about it like your siblings, your brothers, right? Like, they're super annoying sometimes. It's just growing up. You're like, they're being buttheads, they're being a pain in the butt, but they're your siblings. What are you gonna do about it, right? Like, you're not gonna freaking kill your brother, right? You're like, dude, knock it off. You're being a knucklehead. And the sports psychologist I've been talking to, Dr. T, he's like, dude, same exact thing with anxiety, stress, this and that. It's gonna happen. It's just how you're gonna manage it. Are you gonna brush it off, or are you gonna let it consume you? So it's same thing. It's just another way to combat that stress. For me, at least, is just knowing you did all the little things,
Yep.
right, right. You spent, you know, it's like 10 o'clock at night, and you're staring at this protein shake, like, dude, I just want to go to bed. But you make the decision. You're like, if I want to be national champ, I'm gonna slam it, then go to
Yeah.
bed, right? So it's like those little decisions you make every day. So then, because we all know wrestling matches they're high paced.
Yeah.
You take a second to think, you're too slow. So you
Yep.
get your body just making those decisions automatically. It's a really good
Yeah.
competitive edge to build and have. And like I said, you can do incredible things.
Yeah, and you were preparing for it, like you're saying, like, your whole life for this, but I think it was cool too. You kinda went through, I don't know, like, 2 different sides of it because you go from being the underdog, which is like,
Mhm,
yeah, there's some anxiety to that. It's a
mhm,
national tournament. You
mhm,
got a huge Iowa crowd, but probably the whole crowd's with you trying to
mhm,
excited
mhm.
for kind people love that story. So then once you win that, now you're kinda going in, like, probably a higher seed than Lezak. I think he was
Yep,
6th, right? So
yep,
you
yep,
went
yep.
from, like, the underdog to,
Mhm.
"I'm supposed to win now," and I think
Yeah,
you seized both those moments, which is really cool to do it, like, back to back like that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and it sounds like you just, I mean, inner confidence and you prepared for it, hay's in the barn, and let me just go do what I know how to do.
yeah. And
Uh,
like I said, the support staff that we had just made it. They kept making it clear that it's like you don't want to go out to defend anything. Like, that's the coolest thing. Is like, like you. I mean, you know it too, right? You're national champ. Like, no one can ever take that away from you, which is the coolest thing, right? That's so awesome. And just having that mindset to going into the next season and be like, hey, you're not defending anything, right? You're just going to get a new one, right?
yeah.
Because there are no national champs this year. They haven't been crowned yet. You got to go get another one. So that was a good way to kind of relieve that pressure for
Yeah.
sure.
I think you said another thing too, which I think I certainly saw it in your career, Darian, when you focused on this. But like when Brad stopped you in the tunnel, was like, "Hey, just go wrestle."
Hmm.
If you just kind of like you have confidence in your preparation, right? You put all that time in, you put yourself in those positions over and over, and then when you step on the mat, you don't. There's no pressure. You just go let it
Hmm.
fly. You just go
Hmm.
wrestle.
Hmm.
That's how you perform best. And I think, I mean, saw it like your true freshman year, blood round, girlfriend breaks up with you. No one's expecting you to win that match. You just went out and
Hmm.
wrestled. You're an
Hmm.
All American.
Yeah, let it
Junior year,
fly.
no one was expecting you for it to beat Gilman.
Hmm.
You put yourself in those positions. You let it fly.
And I
You
think the
go and we
coolest
win.
thing, especially talking like now that we're older adults, and me and Max, me and you soundboard a bunch of stuff all the time, and seeing that mentality and that effort and that process transition into real world things is incredible, right? So me and Max always talk about this too, and I'm sure Ryan, that you'll agree, is like there's an elite way of thinking, and you see it not only in the wrestling world but in the business world. Look at all the CEOs and the guys that are getting stuff done at the highest level. It's that same elite mentality, right? And like I said, me and Max talk about this all the time. It's like good companies, right, are usually run by elite thinkers and know how to handle that kind of stuff. That's why, a lot of businesses want one college athletes, but more specifically, like freaking wrestlers, right? elite high level wrestlers because one, we're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve any type of goal, right? And we're willing to do the hard work, right? Because wrestling is such like a blue collar, hard working sport. You know what I mean? Like seeing how like publicity isn't super crazy. It's getting better now, but we do it because you were freaking competitive, right? We want to, be the last man standing in a brutal sport, and carrying that over to the business world, right? And getting involved in anything, like even entrepreneurial, anything in general. It's like people want those type of workers who know how to manage um, stress, anxiety, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
I can still get things done.
I think it's wrestlers in particular, athletes, even if you train hard or whatever, but you get comfortable being uncomfortable,
Hmm.
which is a huge skill for anything you do.
We're not afraid of that, right? And that's how we handle situations. We sometimes we'll get tossed into something. Okay, it's a little bit harder than I thought. We have to match that level and figure it out, right? There's no excuse on the other side of like, oh, I don't think I can meet this deadline. No, you do whatever deadline is, whether you're on top of it or you're a little bit lazy and you're like, oh crap, now I gotta play catch up. Like no matter what, you're gonna get that thing done on that timeline, right? But we've learned as being more, professional and older athletes is like the more you're on top of it, like in college sometimes like you could get away with like not doing, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like cramming, right? And we can still be elite. But now like in the because we're a little bit older, we think it's more efficient to be on top of your stuff, right? So then you're chipping away at it, so then you meet those deadlines. But if we have to cram, we'll cram. It's the idea, the mentality of we're gonna get whatever needs to get done, and we're not gonna hand in some BS. We're gonna hand in the best work, right? We're
Yeah.
competing on all levels. So it's cool how that mentality just transcends more than more than wrestling, right?
Oh
It's the
yeah.
elite mentality to have when it comes to just general health, right? You guys talk about general health a lot. Like if you have that mentality of being disciplined, right, and having a goal and striving towards that goal, the sky's the limit, right? And like you said, if there's gonna be negativity, doubt, all this kind of stuff, it's just how you want to combat that and do that is your choice. But we have three incredible athletes here that can kind of preach to you some more advantageous strategies.
I love that. I think the
Amen.
fact that, if you don't transfer your skills from like a sport or something into real life, it was kind of a waste of that of playing that
Mhm,
sport. I think
mhm,
um sports are awesome because it kind of gives us an environment to develop those skills, and then
mhm,
you use those in everyday life.
mhm,
And yeah, like you said, I think I've seen a lot of student athletes be really hard workers and do well at jobs because it's like they know how to follow a schedule, they're disciplined, they're resilient,
mhm,
they get through all that stuff.
mhm.
Um, One other question I think too, kind of switching gears here a little bit. What's your nutrition look like as you travel? Because you're on the road all the time. I think we're just
Yeah.
talking. You're here for a week, you're back home
Mhm.
for a day, and then you're going to France, I believe,
We go to
and
Puerto
then
Rico first, yeah, then France.
Puerto Rico, then France. So,
Mhm.
like, while you're doing all this, how are you staying on top of your training,
Yeah.
your nutrition, all this stuff? Because, I mean, obviously, you got to plan ahead. You talk about,
Mhm,
having a plan a little bit. How do you plan for
mhm.
those big trips and making sure everything's on point in less than ideal situations?
Yeah, for sure. There's variables with everything. So one thing, again, this is goes back to, the mentorship of Max is like, I remember on some of our trips, Max would pull up to the airport with like a bag of chicken and rice and
Let's
like
go.
literally pulling out his book bag, like going through like TSA. And I remember like at first, like he would get looked at, like get some looks, but like that just shows the level of commitment. So like I'm just fortunate enough that my standard that I saw all the time was very high. Like, so I knew nothing, but that was the standard. So now, taking that over now into international travel and stuff is, I think the biggest thing for me is the simpler the better, right? So like my diet consists of like, when I'm home, very simple stuff. Like it's very boring, right? It's just a carb. Like I just eat rice, beef, and a vegetable pretty much every day, right? A carb, protein, and some veggies, and then just pound it in water and electrolytes throughout the day. So it's very boring at home, but like I said, internationally gets really hard. So I'll try and pack the essentials that I can bring. Because you've been overseas for some competitions. Sometimes you get over there and you're like, this is
Don't have peanut
terrible.
butter, man. I was like, how do you guys live over here? You don't have peanut butter.
Or like the food I got, you're like, I'm not trusting that that mystery meat. Or the eggs are a little bit off color. You're
Oh,
like,
I
I
had
was
raw
scared.
salmon in, Belarus once, and I was like I thought about it about 5 minutes later, I'm like, "I'm really lucky I didn't get sick from that. I
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
shouldn't have ate that," but I didn't think about it. I'm like, "There's not a lot of
I
protein
might have been
here."
on that
Ate it.
trip with you. That
Yeah,
was
I think
crazy.
you were. Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
we got in really early in the morning and they had like some gray meat and some salmon. And we're like, I guess we gotta try the salmon because I don't think I'm ready to eat some horse tonight.
Oh, you don't know what you're getting, and they don't really
Yes.
speak English, and yeah.
No. So yeah, no. So that kind of stuff, like those are variables again that you can try to control, but you gotta do your best. And that's when you pack some essential stuff. But besides that, it's just this part of the game. Like I said, you can pack what you can, but just being able to kind of roll with the punches there. So I know mom like I try to stay big as I can. I'm still a light 57 kilo guy, so I try and stay like as big as I can, 10 pounds over all at all times. But I know when it comes to making weight, I have it down to a T now. When I get overseas, I drop like 4 or 5 pounds easy. You know what I mean? Just you know what I mean? So my weight cut goes from like a 10 pound, cut to like a easy 5 pounds, right? And that's and even like the last two are considered the hardest, but that's just day of, you know, uh, maybe miss a meal and work out one extra time and I'm on. Um, but yeah, my thing, especially when you're talking about maintaining that diet, is um trying to make sure that you're prepared for those variables as best as you can, right? And at the end of the day, don't really kind of throw yourself for a loop if they're not ideal environments, right? Prepare
Yeah.
yourself for the best, or sorry, prepare for the worst, right? And if the worst comes, cool. If not, it's all a positive. But just know that you can get some, like you said, Belarus. You get there and you're like, yo, I'm so hungry. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Gotta
scared.
try this.
I'm scared to eat anything. Like you're in straight survival mode. You're like, I gotta eat this weird looking salmon because I need some type of protein. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like prepare as much as you can. So my biggest thing is just, I one meal prep, but two, I try and pack as much essential stuff that I can get. And easy stuff like oatmeal, that kind of stuff. If they got hot water and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
oatmeal, peanut butter, honey, that kind of stuff, like beef jerky, that kind of stuff. A lot of nuts, you know, peanuts, cashews, all that kind of stuff. And then like a package of like fruit snacks to like munch every once in a while. But you gotta get the allergy.
Gotta get your
Yeah,
carbs in.
but the simpler the better for me. Like you know what I mean. Like I wasn't a big cook in college. I was on dining hall until I died. But one thing that helped me, after college was just like talking to Max about it a lot. Was just simpler the better, man. Like you're gonna have days where you're bored of eating the same crap over and over
Yep.
again. But that's again going back to how we train. It's like that's the price. That's sacrifice. We make a bunch of sacrifices, right? That's the sacrifice. We're gonna sacrifice our pleasure of food, of like diverse food, because I know that this is what I need to perform at the level that I want, right? So like,
Bingo.
I basically submitted to okay, I'm not gonna enjoy all these meals, but I know I need to crush this rice, chicken, and vegetables 3 times a day. You know what I mean? Or rice,
Yep.
steak, whatever it may be. So
Yep.
my wife just like she learned to like read the same crap every day of the
Yeah.
week. Or I
That's
just
the theme.
make her a different meal, right? So she'll have a little bit of what I have, and then I'll make her another meal on the side, just so she doesn't have to go through it
Sure.
with me. But that's part of give and take with relationships too, right? So it's like it's cool, but once you submit to that and just be like, this is how it's gonna be. And like look at all the protein, right? All that delicious protein usually isn't the best for you, right? The stuff that tastes like cardboard and just no flavor, that's usually the shit that's the best for you. Right? I learned that really quick. I'm like some of the protein shakes that Max would have, they're very simple. I'm like, man, this does not taste like anything. He's like, well, I mean, it's the best. Like, look at all the nutritional stuff. It's the best for you. So I've learned that personally, and you can get diverse with the type of steak,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like
No, it's
me and Max were talking about like I love ribeyes, right? They got like a little bit
Yeah.
fattier steak, so I love, and they got a lot of flavor. Love ribeyes. But I'll crush. I can crush ribeyes majority of the week because I am bulky, but I switch over to like New York
real
strip,
leaner.
right? That kind of stuff, and then
Yeah.
chicken, either chicken breast or chicken breast gets so dry. I love chicken thighs, right? They got a lot more
Yeah.
flavor, a little more fat to them. Then yeah, it's just where you're at in your peak, and where you're at with your weights, where you can adjust that. So
I think that's awesome, dude. And like it's like a fine line of I don't know. You prepare for everything like you're saying, but then at a certain point too, it's like you just roll with the punches and you got to kind of not care. There's going to be a time
yeah,
you show up you don't feel good, something's not
Mhm.
right. And it's like,
Mhm.
you still got to do it. So I
I
think
mean, you
that's
know
one
this.
thing.
Most humbling thing you get to see being competing internationally is like, dude, some of these guys, you've seen them. Some of these dresses are nasty, but they show
Yeah.
up and it was like literally looks like they just rolled out of bed, and you're like, dude, how's this guy so nasty? Because like they have the mentality is just like sometimes you gotta just go get it. So that's also a
Yeah.
factor too. It's kind of overlooked. But if you can be,
Yep.
I'd rather be as prepared as you can be, right? And then at the end of the day, just let it fly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a fine line between being super prepared and dialing everything in and, like, not being a prima donna.
Mhm.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, embracing the suck, right?
Yep.
Embrace this.
That's it.
And again, transcending into like the real world of business world. Like think about, I mean, you went to Northwestern, right? Like you have a lot of buddies who don't usually compete afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Similar with Lehigh, a lot of our teammates get into finance or go work on Wall Street or big engineers. A lot of them come back and tell me they're like, "Man, I wish I could still train," right? But they're crushing their job because like, dude, he's like, dude, the amount of lazy people I work with is incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible. But he's like,
Yeah.
I miss um getting pushed in a different manner, right? Because that's why a lot of people like like get to being gym rats or gym heads, right? Because they can't compete and they don't have that outlet, but they want to put like put more
Channel it.
work in. Yeah, right. They want to channel it. So it's like it's cool to see that wrestling mentality transfers really well into the real world business world, whatever you want to endure. It's crazy how it's just like it's that mentality and that discipline, that structure is just it's
It's,
elite. It's like, go back to the beginning. It's elite. It's the elite way of thinking that. I guarantee all three of us think in that same manner when it comes to anything. You know what I mean?
yeah. So speaking of that, Darren, this is the last question for you. What are your plans then for when you're done training and competing?
So when I'm done training, my plans right now is I'm gonna get into coaching. Right, I'm gonna look to coach on the Division 1 level, wherever that may be. I'm excited to get into it. Right, so I took an internship in sales with some local alumni, and I've learned a lot on the business end, and it's been really exciting. Um, but I think for now, I want to get into more of being a head coach figure or a coach figure at first, but getting into the head coach. And I learned, especially from my business internship, that um, when you're a head coach, you're like a CEO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
in our, directing more towards you, Ryan, like in our world, everybody at this level knows how to wrestle, right? All the coaches know how to wrestle,
Yeah.
right? It's like which coaches, it's the elite programs know how to delegate, right? Look at their head coaches, they're CEOs. They fundraise really well. They recruit really well. They know which pieces motivate their kids really well. You know what I mean? So not
Yeah.
all the coaches are showing wrestling all the time,
Right.
right? So I've been learning more so that end of the wrestling side of coaching, which has been really cool. I think getting to the business world and seeing how CEOs operate has been really cool too. Like I soundboard a lot with Max, right? Max is killing it with his entrepreneurial endeavors, right? So I'm always asking him and kind of gauging where I'm at, right, with my leadership development and my leadership skills is like, okay, so how? Because I always try and relate whatever he's doing into wrestling terms, so I
Yeah.
can understand, right? That's just like a way I like when
That's
it
how
comes
you
to that
think
kind of
of it.
stuff. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never like I throw my ego right out the window, right? And I think it's one of the biggest things that's been held with me so much. It's like I know what I don't know, and I'll raise my hand. Like I did it all summer in these while I was interning. I would raise my hand. And I got to go to business school. I was an English major, so I remember I'd raise my hand in the middle of these meetings, and be like, and they're throwing acronyms out the window, like all over the place. So I'm like, hey, I'm still in the first chakra. I'm like, what is this acronym? And
Yeah.
like, I don't care if I look like a rookie, right? Because I want to learn. And a lot of people, a lot of the CEOs, like were so fond of me asking those questions because not only did that help me understand, but then the CEOs would be like, great question, Darian. Ryan, how about you explain to the first, the intern
Yeah. Yeah.
what we're talking about, right? So now as a CEO, I'm making sure my team in depth knows the ins and
Yeah.
outs of what we're doing, right? That's just the level of leadership. So I took that internship not to learn sales, right? I mean, I learned a lot about sales, but I learned how I focused the majority on how CEOs run a ship from a
Yeah.
different perspective. So when I carry that over into wrestling, it's like the CEO needs to make sure his team, right? It's all trickled down. He needs to make sure his staff is well equipped because the more equipped their staff is, then their athletes can learn from that as well, right? So I think one of the biggest ways to learn something is to teach it. If you understand something enough that you can teach it down to the finest things, like Max will tell you at Lehigh camps, I was freaking always stuck with like the 6-year-old. Like these kids were like, I was babysitting, but at the same time, Pat,
I was babysitting.
Pat, dude, like we'd get 4-year-olds where parents would be like, "Can my son come and just hang out?" And I'm like,
Yep.
get him in here." At the same time, Pat was like, "Listen, Darren, one, not a lot of kids until you can manage it. They don't have the patience, right?" So I pride myself a little bit on the patience, but he'd be like, "Listen, if you can teach technique to these kids at the most basic level, it really shows your comprehension, one, of wrestling, and two, of being able to communicate." You know what I mean? So he's like, I learned that, like, carried that over into the business world. Like, so watching that CEO do that to his workers, like, "Hey, talk to the intern." It just goes to show that it transcends all areas, business, like real world sports, whatever it may be. So, I've learned a lot in that aspect. So, circling back, getting into coaching, I'm really excited to kind of learn from, whether I stay at Lehigh or I go somewhere else. I'm excited and willing and ready to learn how other um, teams function, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm here, with no ego to learn as much as I can, because I believe I can be a really good coach, down the road. So I'm excited to wherever that brings me, wherever that takes me, to learn as much as I can. Because like I said, at this point, we all know wrestling. We all know high level wrestling, right? All the guys on staff know wrestling. So I'm excited to bring that touch, right? But to learn from other people and learn who's really serious and committed to growing this sport, right? Because I think the hardest thing at this level, and I'm sure you can contest this, is like we can't do it for them, right? Like, how many times have you trained kids and you're like, you're so talented, but the second you want it for yourself, and the same thing while you were competing, the second you wanted it for yourself, there's no stopping you, right? There's no stopping you. Your coach can convince you and hype you up as much as you can, but so I think that's gonna be the biggest challenge, is getting these kids to believe in themselves. But I'm excited for that challenge. I'm excited
Yeah,
to learn everything outside of, like how certain university scholarships work, like, the bookwork stuff that as well. So yeah, I'm
absolutely.
excited to get into that, and like I said, having incredible guys like you two just soundboard and learn. And I think it's the biggest thing about our sport too, is such a small circle that we have sources. We can outsource to like each other and just soundboard and just learn and grow. And I think that's the biggest part of any man, is just being able to learn and grow and evolve and adapt. Right. So going all the way back to the beginning, talking about Eric Markowitz, your lifting coach, as like being around people that do that on a daily basis. Max, you, my lifting coach, Eric, the Lehigh coach. It's an environment where that's the norm. Is learning
Yeah,
how to adapt, grow, change. The rules are going to change, right? NIL, right? Change the whole game. So being willing to adapt, prepare for the worst, and get after it, try to provide and produce the best outcome.
dude,
Well,
I
with
love
that, yeah, with that mindset, you no doubt you will succeed.
Gotta get after it.
100%. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It was great catching up with you.
Yeah, appreciate
And
you
then
guys.
hopefully we'll get you out here at Stanford to train at some point too. And
Heck
I'm
yeah.
sure if you're ever back in the you come by, we can we should all get together too.
We gotta get a
Heck
team
yeah.
session in. What do you guys got on the horizon? What do you guys got coming up?
Um, we're going to Virginia Tech and Campbell
Okay.
duels. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There you go. What about you, Max?
Just working, lifting, being a meathead,
Are you,
holidays.
are you, are you competing anytime soon?
Probably like May or June.
There you go.
May or
We're
June.
building. We're building. We're bulking, baby.
Yeah.
We're getting
I
right.
think it's strong.
Yes,
Awesome.
sir.
Well, thanks, Darian. We'll call it there. Let's go.
Louis.